Yes, water-only fasting is the best way to get rid of visceral fat. And what's cool is that now we know that after a fast, when a patient begins to refeed, we know that the weight gain that initially comes back is not fat.
The Vidal Speaks podcast.
Episode 142, Dr. Alan Goldhamer, The Crazy Benefits of Water Fasting. Welcome to Vidal Speaks. My name is Deborah Vidal, former 11-year LPGA golf pro turned classical homeopath, certified plant-based nutritionist, and wellness coach. Each week here on Vidal Speaks, we bring you knowledge, inspiration, or natural remedies to help you take charge of your health and feel your best. I believe health is freedom and knowledge is power, so tuning in each week will give you the power to take steps towards freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back from having the energy to do all you want in life. No matter where you are in your journey of wellness, Vidal Speaks can help. I promise. Hey everybody, how are you? It's been such a long time since I've done a podcast, but I've missed you guys, all of you. I really have, because I love my podcast, and one of these days I'm going to do it more frequently again because it's my most favorite thing. But today's podcast is a unique and special one, and let me tell you why. It's special because I had a great interview with the fasting doctor who's one of the most experienced doctors in the science of fasting. His name is Dr. Alan Goldhamer, and it's also special because it was going to be the first podcast that I'd also record the video of so that I could post it on my new YouTube channel called Soul Canyon Kitchen Wisdom. And it's unique because it's the first time ever that I recorded the entire 1 hour and 45-minute interview. And only after we finished, I learned his audio was not there. Oh my God, I never had this happen before, and I had to use a new software because I was trying to capture both audio and video, and damn that new software. I even did 3 pre-tests before the actual call, which of course were all perfect, and still it failed when I needed it. And as you can imagine, I was so upset I actually cried. But you know, life is about accepting whatever curveballs are thrown at us. So I quickly got over it, and I decided to do this podcast over alone and still give you all the info that I learned, because the main point is for you guys to get the information that Dr. Goldhamer has to offer. And it was awesome and amazing, and I can't just throw the information in the trash. I need to give it to you guys because it was so awesome. Okay, so before I get started, let me tell you a little update about what's going on here with Vidal Speaks, and then we'll get right back to the topic of water fasting, which is really exciting. But speaking of exciting, first I have to ask you guys, have you checked out my new YouTube channel, Soul Canyon Kitchen Wisdom? If not, you have to check it out. In the beginning, during the pandemic, I was doing vegan recipe videos with my friend Margot. But once the world opened up again, we both got busy, and I decided to just continue at it alone because I had plans to do more videos and some health videos and food wisdom videos, and that was not Margot's expertise. So if you haven't checked it out in a while, be sure to do so again, because I post 3 videos a week right now, and I think you're going to enjoy learning a combo of food wisdom, detox tips, and amazing plant-based vegan recipes, many of them that are oil-free. I want to include everyone in my channel, so I cook all kinds of delicious foods, because sometimes you just need a damn good chocolate cake for a birthday cake, and I can make that too, even though I may only eat it once a year. But you need a good one to celebrate, so you have to check out that German chocolate cake that I made. Actually, I made it for myself for my own birthday last month. Anyway, I know I have many podcast listeners, and often podcast listeners are different than YouTube video watchers. And I don't think I've told you guys officially about my Soul Canyon Kitchen Wisdom channel. So I just want to let you know that it's growing, and I just want to ask you to join me over there and to be sure to check it out and share it with anyone that wants to learn more about food medicine or just to learn how to make delicious, healthy vegan recipes. But I just want to let you know it's also some health videos too. All right, lastly, I found my new web guy. That other guy, Edwin, let me down. Damn, Edwin, and damn that new software. Wow, that was a hard month. But anyway, I got a new guy and my website is finally all working. So if any of you guys sent me an email in the past and I never replied, I promise you it's because I never got it because my website was a mess. And I apologize, but please email me again now and write to me about anything you want to, about a topic you want me to cover, just to say hello. If you wrote me a question before and you thought I ignored you, I promise I didn't. One reason I didn't do a podcast was because my website was so messed up. It wasn't letting me post things and people weren't able to see even my old podcast. So things were really a mess and I just had to deal with all of that, and I wasted so much time trying to rely on this unreliable Edwin that let me down. But I've moved on. I found a new person and all is good. So I'm back, you guys. And I really love my podcast and I really want to do more. But I'm having a blast doing my Soul Canyon Kitchen channel too. So join me over there. But I just want to be sure to tell you that you can expect more from both Vidal Speaks podcast and Soul Canyon Kitchen, and I'll do more podcasts and post them in both places, hopefully, if I can figure out all the technology to make it work. I have a guy that I'm going to interview really soon all about mercury poisoning and toxicity and detoxing it, and I'm really excited about that, and I pray to God that I don't mess that one up. So much to learn in doing all of this, but it's right up my alley. I love it. I guess that's my Gemini nature, always being curious and loving communication with all of you. Okay, so let's get started, but before we do, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Alan Goldhamer. Now, you guys know he founded the clinic called True North. You've heard me speak of True North Clinic for many years. This is one of my favorite places, even though I've never been there. I love what they do. I want to go there, and when people ask me what would I do if I got sick or I got cancer, I always tell them I'd sign up and go right over to True North. So I can't wait for you guys to at least learn his information, even though it's going to be me reading his answers, because I don't want to just interpret what he said. I want to read the answers that I wrote down right after I lost the interview, because I want to make sure that the answers are in his words. So I apologize if this is a little bit boring, but I really want you guys to get the information, okay? All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Alan Goldhamer. Dr. Alan Goldhamer is the founder of the True North Health Center, a state-of-the-art facility that provides medical and chiropractic services, psychotherapy, counseling, as well as massage and body work. He is also the director of the center's groundbreaking residential health education program. Articulate, inspiring, energetic, passionate, Dr. Goldhamer is one of the most pioneering and dedicated visionaries in health today. An outspoken professional who doesn't shy away from a spirited debate, he is deeply committed to helping people stuck in self-destructive cycles reclaim their ability to change their lives. Dr. Goldhamer has supervised the fasts of thousands of patients. Under his guidance, the center has become one of the premier training facilities for doctors wishing to gain certification in the supervision of therapeutic fasting. Dr. Alan Goldhamer was the principal investigator in 2 landmark studies. The first one is medically supervised water-only fasting in the treatment of hypertension, and that appeared in the June 2001 issue of the Journal of Manipulative and Physiological Therapeutics. Its publication marked a turning point in the evolution of evidence supporting the benefits of water-only fasting. The second study is medically supervised water-only fasting in the treatment of borderline hypertension, and that appeared October 2002 in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. So after completing his chiropractic education at Western State Chiropractic College in Portland, Oregon, Dr. Goldhamer traveled to Australia, where he became licensed as an osteopathic physician. He is the author of the Health Promoting Cookbook and co-author of The Pleasure Trap, Mastering the Hidden Force That Undermines Health and Happiness. All right, well, let's get on to the questions that I asked Dr. Goldhamer and his answers. Are you guys ready? All right, he's very passionate. If he were speaking, you'd be entertained and engaged. But I hope, because I'm going to be telling you what he said, I know it's not as interesting as hearing him, but I'll try to keep you awake. So get something to drink, stay awake, and listen, because the information is golden, even though the delivery may be not so good. All right, here we go. So I asked Dr. Goldhamer, what got you interested in fasting? And he said, actually, playing basketball with my friend, Dr. Lyle, and he also works at True North. He said they've been friends since really in their early 20s, and he thought that if he went on this plant-based diet and ate really clean and worked on cleaning up his diet, he thought he could beat him. In the end, he said they both learned to eat like that, and Dr. Goldhamer said, I still can't beat Dr. Lyle, but one thing is that they both are now in their 60s, and they beat all the guys that they play now who are in their 30s or much younger. So at least it paid off for both of them, he said, to improve their diet. Question: what kind of ailments do you recommend fasting for, or are there ailments where fasting would not be good for? He said, not all conditions are amenable to fasting, but the ones that respond really well are the ones that come from dietary excesses, and they all respond really well to fasting, such as high blood pressure, autoimmune diseases, and some cancers. He said that experience at the clinic shows that fasting facilitates the recovery of these patients with those kind of diseases that are caused by dietary excess. An example of some conditions that would not be good for fasting would be anorexia, or if you maybe just came off of chemo and your body's totally wiped out and you're fatigued and underweight, that wouldn't be a good time for fasting. He said not everyone is ready for a full-on water fast. At the True North Health Center, they really have to meet people where they're at. So maybe they just at first come and they learn about how to cook a healthier diet and how to eat plant-based, and they offer classes on cooking so that people learn how to cook a healthy diet. And for them, a healthy diet is no oil, sugar, and salt. They call it an SOS diet, so sugar, oil, salt. So he said some people just come to the center just to learn to cook and change their diet, and they're not ready for a full-on water fast. But eventually, they usually come back and then they attempt the water fast. Okay, question. I told Dr. Goldhamer my story about being poisoned from the golf course chemicals, and I asked him, can you tell me about how fasting helps the body's detoxification process? Because when I got sick, this is what I knew I had to do to heal. And he said, the traditional justification for fasting was this idea of using it for detoxification because there was a belief that there were toxins that were stored in the body. But now we know that that is true because when you take a biopsy of human fat and you break it down, you'll find there's hundreds of toxins such as pesticides, dioxins, PCBs, mercury, and other heavy metals. And so we know it's true now that toxins are stored in the fat of the humans, but the controversial point is that many say it doesn't matter to our health, but it turns out it does matter, but at different thresholds for different people. So he went on to say that the idea of rapidly mobilizing poisons during fasting has been so accepted that many are now saying that it's also a reason not to fast, because the body's going to mobilize these fat-soluble toxins too quickly and not know what it's doing. And suddenly your system would be overloaded with toxins, unless, of course, he said, you take that person's proprietary products, which, of course, they sell. But from our own studies, he said, we know that there's rapid detoxification of toxins because we measure the levels of the toxins before and after the fast. He went on to say, and we've learned that the process the body uses during fasting in mobilizing toxins out of the body is different than what would happen from just burning 2,000 calories of fluid, and the amount of toxins or nutrient stores coming out is also different. So it shows us there is a very selective and rapid mobilization during fasting. So he said, let me give you an example. If you have a tumor such as lymphoma and you lose 10% of your body weight, yet you lose 100% of the tumor, not 10% of the tumor, so we know that the body is preferentially mobilizing some kind of nutrient stores more than others. In other words, you're losing 10% of your body weight, but 100% of the tumor. So it's a very selective process that's going on during fasting. So he said that it's getting the visceral fat, which is not helpful to the body, before it's mobilizing the adipose fat. Certainly before it's getting to the critical nerve tissues and other important reserves. The body certainly has its own intelligence, and it appears that the endogenous and exogenous toxins are preferentially mobilized in water-only fasting at much more powerful rate than just going on a healthy diet. So, exogenous means toxins from without, and endogenous means toxins within. So he's saying when you water fast, there's definitely a preferential rate that happens with water fasting that's way more than if you were just eating a clean diet, let's say, or doing some other kind of fasting where you're actually eating food. So the body uses this intelligent system that it has to take tumors away faster, to take toxins away faster. So during a water-only fast, you don't have to worry about the toxins mobilizing and get a person sick past maybe 2-3 days. He goes on to talk about that experience. So he went on to then say, so the bottom line is that water-only fasting is a great way to remove toxins and all kinds of chemicals. But the most important factor is to be supervised and monitored and to have a good case history done. In case you experience any complications, they know what to do. It's really important to understand this is not something you should do alone or at home alone. Okay, next question. Speaking of adipose fat versus visceral fat, many people today, even if they're thin, they have what is known as syndrome X. It's also called metabolic syndrome from stress and overload of the adrenals, total adrenal burnout, and they develop this kind of belly fat, which is likely visceral fat, and that's the dangerous kind of fat, which leads to things like type 2 diabetes. So my question to Dr. Goldhamer was, if a person is thin and still has this belly fat, is it likely still visceral fat, although they're thin? And could they too benefit from water-only fasting? And he said, yes, having visceral fat is not just a matter of being fat or thin. Many thin people have visceral fat and can have metabolic syndrome. And yes, water-only fasting is the best way to get rid of visceral fat. And what's cool is that now we know that after a fast, when a patient begins to refeed, we know that the weight gain that initially comes back is not fat, but it's more water, fiber, protein, and nutrients. So the fat loss actually stays away as long as they stay on the healthy diet. That's interesting. That was really cool to hear that, because I know when you do a water fast, you seem to gain your weight right back, but that's just water and fiber and protein, and it's not the fat you're gaining back if you're staying on a healthy diet. Okay, next question. Would fasting help a person detox from years of animal foods? And this is what he said. Diet alone is a huge help for detoxing. When you take a person off an all-animal diet, you change their entire microbiome. When we eat red meat, you produce a gut bacteria called trimethylamine. And when this is metabolized by the liver, it turns it into TMAO. And this promotes the formation of cholesterol plaques in our blood vessels, and it may lead to heart attack, stroke, and death. TMAO may also be linked to death from prostate cancer. So when you change to a plant-based diet, but especially a whole food, low-fat plant-based diet, or as he calls an SOS diet, you get rid of TMAO quite fast. It's really encouraging, he said, to see how fast people's health can turn around from the diet alone. But yes, fasting is an accelerated way for the body to detox in every regard. So cool. Makes you all want to go fast, right? Okay, next question. What do you do when you get a thin person? Can they fast if they're thin? And he said they can still do a fast, but they can't do a long one. The question really more is for them, where is their starting point or their current health? And that really is what determines if they're able to be a candidate for fasting and how long they can fast. We only decide on a fast after seeing blood work, and we take a good history, and from this, then we can determine if they can handle a fast and how long they can handle a fast. It's only according to those factors in their blood work and their history, right? But if their blood work and their history supports a fast, then they can do one, but it's likely going to be a shorter one. So then I said, what's considered a short fast? And he said 7 to 10 days. Wow. So 7 to 10 days, he said, is a short one. Myself and the staff do once a year a 10-day fast just for reset and health benefits. This is a good length fast to do yearly and would offer lots of benefits to everyone. But again, he made sure to tell me all the time not to be done alone. Okay, question. How do you decide how long each client will fast? Is there a situation when you use long fasts versus short fasts? And it's very similar to the answer before. He said we can only determine if a patient can fast after a history and seeing their lab work. And once we have that, we can determine if they're a candidate for fasting, and if so, how long. Many people are on lots of medications, so there has to be a time period to get ready to fast. It's really important to know that fasting needs to be done at an experienced clinic with very experienced doctors where there's daily lab works done and monitoring and a good history. Okay, question. Can people take medications when fasting? No, water fasting means you're off all medications, but we have a staff of doctors that know how to unwind people's medications. The first step is to change their diet, and you'd be surprised how many of those medications already are not needed once they change their diet. It's truly amazing, and that's because most of the medications they're taking are due to the wrong diet. So we need to get them off the medications first, and we do this by having a consult over the phone with them in advance before they come in, and we have them start on the diet. And also, there's a 3-month wait list, he said, to get into the clinic. So when they're doing the new diet for 3 months, by the time they get to the clinic, they're ready for the fast. So yes, they get off all their meds. Water fasting is with no medications. Next question. I know you don't allow supplementation, but can you tell my listeners why that is, especially mineral supplements? And he said, when you give one supplement, especially critical minerals like potassium, That's so important. You can put other minerals that are downstream to potassium out of range by giving one mineral. You have to allow the body to naturally go through this process, and that's why lab work is required frequently when they're fasting. We're looking at clients' critical mineral levels during their entire fast, and this is how we know if they can fast, how long they can fast, and when it's time to break the fast. So that was really interesting because I always wondered why they wouldn't give minerals, but now we know why, because you don't want to mess up the ratios, because if you give potassium, then all the downstream minerals are going to be messed up. Okay, next question. What is the longest fast that you do at True North? What do you guys think? 40 days. Dr. Goldhamer told me a story that said he studied under this doctor or a mentor that he did super long fasts, and he told him that after 40 days you start losing sleep. And Dr. Goldhamer said to him, "What do you mean? You mean after 40 days the patient suddenly can't sleep?" And his mentor said, "No, I can't sleep because it gets really difficult at 40 days. That's why he stopped doing all his fasts at 40 days, and that's the same that they do at True North. So 40 days the longest. Wow, can you imagine, you guys? 40 days on only water, and we worry if we miss one meal. All right, next question. Can you explain the process when someone does a long fast? How are they feeling on day 1, and then day 10, and then maybe day 21? He said, a lot determines where a person's health is when they start their fast. But in general, the first few days are the hardest because you're adapting off of a glucose metabolism and you're getting into a fat metabolism, which means the brain is changing fuels from burning sugar to burning fat. And also because they're detoxing and they're coming off all these medications and a poor diet. So over the years, we've learned to reduce this toxic effect by getting them to eat fruit and vegetable diet a few days before they start the fast, which means they're eliminating caffeine and cigarettes and alcohol, and those are all the hardest things for them to come off of, and that helps them create a lot of the detox reactions and get rid of those before the actual water fast. But he said changing their diet before the fast has really helped us have more success in eliminating the toxic reactions. And during the first few days, they go through a detox process where they'll get these horrible tastes in their mouth, or some people get skin rashes or pains, and they get these vivid dreams. That this can happen often with people, but they start seeing things come and then they go away, and that's really empowering, he said, for the people to see the body healing itself without a pill to fix the symptom. He said that's very empowering for them to see that, and that helps them get through it all. And then he went on to say the next stage is around day 4 or 5. The body's pretty much acclimated to not eating, and they're not even desiring food anymore. They're actually going to cooking demonstrations, and they're going to the dining room to socialize with others. When they're 5 to 10 days into their fast, they're not hungry, so they can do these kinds of things. And for some people, they start seeing some changes already in their body. At this point, they see things like tumor shrinking or chronic debilitating symptoms that they've had for years start going away. And it's very motivating for them. They get extremely motivated at this point. Wow. That's cool. And then he went on to say, but at some point you get to a place where there may be a limiting factor, like maybe their electrolytes are getting low or their energy's not acceptable anymore, and maybe their time is limited because they have to get back to their job. But for many people, this is an experience that's an epiphany, because now they have a new education and they're open to a new way of living and eating, and they've seen so many changes during their fast, so they have a newfound hope. Even when they were told that there was nothing that could be done about their disease, they now realize they can get well when they've been told they can't get well. So this new education is super powerful for them. It's like starting over, and many of them, they say it's so empowering, and they feel For the first time, they now have a feeling of who they really are rather than what they had become. This is very empowering. They now want to continue this feeling, so it helps them stay motivated to continue, and they start prioritizing their diet, exercise, and sleep. So this is at the, say 10 to 21 day point. Okay, so it's time to take a little break and go get yourself a nice pure glass of distilled water. But while you're doing that, I just want to let you guys know the VS Club is up and going and strong. I have quite a lot of live streams there and information, homeopathic teachings, all kinds of good homeopathic protocols for all different kinds of everyday ailments. So if you guys are interested, it's only $15 a month and you'll learn so much. I'm doing the least amount of time I'm doing in there is like 2 hours of teaching a month. And for a long while, I was doing an hour a week. So it just depends on what's going on in my schedule. But you'll learn a lot, and that kind of information is priceless. Okay, you guys drink up that water. And if you want your own distiller, go to my website because it's working now, and go to the shop page and the recommended products page, and you'll see the counter distiller that I use by My Pure Water. So tell them you're a Vidal Speaks listener and you'll get a little deal. All right, you guys, let's go learn some more. Here we go. Okay, next question. How much weight does a person lose in a water fast? Do you gain it right back? And he said, the average weight loss is 1 pound a day, and since we added a DEXA scanner to the clinic, which measures body composition, including visceral fat, we found out that after fasting, weight loss is gained back partially, but the weight gained back is not fat. It's water, fiber, glycogen, and protein, not fat if they eat the diet we recommend and refed them with. So the fat stays away as long as you eat the SOS diet. And not only do you lose fat, but preferentially you lose visceral fat, which is the fat that stores around the organs that causes diabetes type 2. This is so important for our health to get rid of that kind of fat. Question, can you speak to us about intermittent fasting? What is it and how beneficial is it? Is there any ideal amount of hours to not eat on a daily basis, or is it a case by case per person? And he said, intermittent fasting is where you stop eating for a recommended period of hours and you drink only water during those hours. He told me that if you fast 16 hours every single day and limit your eating window to 8 hours every day, you may be inducing some changes even in that limited amount of fast, but cumulatively, they have a very profound effect on your health. So if you count hours of sleep, then this is actually pretty easy to do because it means you, let's say, eat dinner at 5 and you don't eat again then until 9 a.m. in the morning, and 8 of those hours are sleep. So it's not that hard. He said, this is likely the single biggest benefit that you can get from fasting other than coming to the clinic for a 7 to 10 day water only fast. And then he said, I highly recommend for everyone to do this. Question. I know you speak of exercise and fasting as having some common rewards. Can you speak about this? He was super excited about this question, but he said, yes, we're learning so much and there's still so much to know, but we're currently working on many research products, and we've learned that when you do a long water fast, that this is a huge impact on the body. Another thing we've learned is that exercise and fasting produce very similar benefits. There's an experiment they did with 2 genetically identical rats, and you give one of them a wheel to exercise on. So what did they find? Well, first of all, they used it, and second of all, when they exercised, they didn't get Alzheimer's. And he said, we know now that BDNF or brain-derived neurotropic factor, is dramatically higher in rats that exercise. The precursor to BDNF is beta-hydroxybutyric acid, which is the fatty acid that your brain is mobilizing during a water-only fasting. So he said, we now know that BDNF goes up with water fasting, and that's exactly the same as with exercise. Isn't that cool? He was really excited about all this research coming out about the similarities between exercise and water-only fasting. He went on to say, also, glycogen mobilizing enzymes go up in fasting just like in exercise. In fact, all of the biomarkers that we've been able to measure from exercise are there for fasting. It's truly weird when you think about working out and training versus just resting and fasting. But then he said, when you think about it, exercise and fasting are both reversing the results of dietary excess. So I'm not surprised at all, but it's really cool. And then he went on to say, one of the things of being a trained athlete is that you get better at moving glycogen stores. That is why athletes carbo load, so they have more energy and they don't hit the wall so quickly. And we've learned the same enzymatic production for glycogen is induced during fasting because you have to mobilize all your glycogen. It is suggested that not only do you induce improved efficiency of enzyme systems, but they persist even after fasting, which is just like exercise, where you get better and better with more exercise. Well, it's the same, it seems, with fasting. That means that with every water fast you do, you get better and better. And we think perhaps that is one of the justifications for intermittent fasting. That's why I suggest to everybody to do 16 hours a day of not eating and drinking only water, and eat during that 8-hour window. Question: what are a few other really important changes that happen in fasting? He said another important thing that changes in fasting is insulin. Insulin is the hormone that drives sugar from the bloodstream into the cells where it's needed to burn. You may think that type 2 diabetes don't have enough insulin, but that's wrong. They have plenty of insulin, but it's resistant to getting in the cell. Well, we know that exercise helps insulin resistance, and guess what? So does fasting. 80% of our patients are able to achieve normal blood sugar levels if they stay on the diet. They can maintain those blood sugar levels. This can be done by diet alone, but it takes time, and it's difficult for some people to do it on their own, and this is where our clinic comes in to help. Most doctors have never seen one patient get better from type 2 diabetes, he said, because they have no idea about diet and lifestyle, and they don't even tell patients that diet can help. And they don't even live that lifestyle themselves. And although not everyone will be willing to make such radical changes, the doctor should be educated about the benefits of diet for those that are willing. He was very passionate about this. And another thing that happens in fasting is the natriuresis, which is the elimination of excess sodium from the body, which happens right away. This is what drops the blood pressure dramatically and rids people of arthritis and gets rid of congestive heart failure symptoms. It's amazing how fast this happens, and it is why so many people get rid of their conditions from a water-only fast. Question: whether someone chooses to daily intermittent fast or even a shorter water fast at home, do you recommend exercising during fasting, even if it's intermittent fasting, or should we be resting? He said, resting. We must be resting during fasting. These people that are doing these crazy workouts while fasting is completely crazy and completely wrong, and it's really dangerous. I would never recommend anyone exercise during a fast. Your body needs to rest. The organs begin to slow down, and the functions are also slowing down, and rest is a must. Question: other than intermittent fasting, is there a fast that we should do or can do on a weekly basis or even a monthly basis to help us maintain health and live longer? For example, what about doing 2 days a week or 4 days in a row in a month? He said, no, I only recommend intermittent fasting, and no one should be undertaking fasting at home unless they have lab work and they have a history done to make sure they're a candidate for a safe water-only fast. Fasting needs to be done at an experienced clinic with experienced doctors doing daily lab monitoring and a good history. Not everyone is a candidate for water fasting, so you have to make sure that even though you might think it's only 4 days at home, if your lab work doesn't show that you have good electrolyte stores, then you would not be a good candidate. He said it's really important to have expert guidance, and he wanted to tell people that True North, you can call one of their doctors. They do a free 30-minute consult to discuss the process and help clients learn if they're a candidate. Just reach out to them at True North if you're interested, and I'll put all the links and notes of this podcast and video down below if you're interested. The bottom line of what you can undertake at home on your own is intermittent fasting. For the highest quality life possible, I recommend to intermittent fast 16 hours daily, in addition to do a once a year 10-day supervised water-only fast, and to eat an SOS diet, which is a no sugar, no oil, no salt diet, along with sleep and exercise. This is my recommendation for a longer life and a higher quality life. So intermittent fasting, sleep and exercise, and a once a year 10-day water-only supervised fast. And as a matter of fact, the people that benefit the most from the 1 and 2 week water fast that we do are the healthy people looking to stay healthy and that want to avoid disease. Better to use it to prevent than wait till you get the disease. Question: what kind of water do you use or recommend when doing water fasting? He said very clearly, we use pure distilled water because when people are fasting and detoxing, their body just needs pure water. Amen to that one. Question: are there any studies done on fasting and its benefits or risks? And he said, Dr. Longo has done a lot of research with fasting. They've been able to show via studies now that fasting is safe. True North is participating in many of the researches and publishing papers about its benefits. We know from Dr. Longo's work that cancer cells don't adapt to the environment of fasting so well without glucose and are actually more vulnerable to chemotherapy in the fasting state, probably due to the higher metabolic rate when fasting. So cancer cells seem to be put at a slightly disadvantage than the healthy cells, and actually the healthy cells seem to have some protection from the chemotherapy in that state, which is so interesting. So actually fasting can make the drugs work better, and the medical world liked that, he said, and suddenly they decided it wasn't quackery to do fasting. Yeah, isn't that funny? That as soon as they saw their drugs would work better with people that were fasting, suddenly fasting wasn't quackery. And then he went on to say, and what also was interesting was that many of the biomarkers that predict cancer turned off whether they were using chemotherapy or not. Therefore, fasting puts the body into healing mode. Wow, that's fantastic. I always say to people, what's the first thing? You know, when people ask me, what would you do if you got cancer, or what's the first thing you would do? I always say to them, I'd check into True North and do water-only fasting. Okay, last question. Can you give me an example of one of your best cases? He said one case is of a stage 3 follicular lymphoma that had progressed over 2 years. Doctors told her diet had nothing to do with her cancer. He told her fasting was quackery. She didn't want to do chemo because it's not effective in this condition. She went to an oncologist and he told her that fasting would not help. In 21 days of fasting and feeding her for 10 days, her tumors disappeared. Her doctor was reluctant to do a CT scan, but she insisted, and sure enough, all the tumors were gone. After 1 year, she was doing great. We tried to get the oncologist to sign on to the paper that we wrote up on this case, but he never responded even years later. We followed up with her for 3 years. She's maintained her weight loss and stuck to the diet, and she was still cancer-free. We're now working on her 5-year follow-up. Since her case, we've had stage 4 lymphoma patients with results that look really good so far. I think when you have highly motivated individuals with this condition that are willing to do radical extreme things like diet, exercise, and sleep, that they'll do really well with this condition. How long you live in life, he said, has a lot to do with genetics and some luck. But how well you live with the life and the time that you have left is dependent on what you put in your mouth and the diet and lifestyle you live. Most Americans spend 17 years in poor health at the end of their life. That doesn't need to be that way, he said. With the right diet, sleep, and exercise, you can dramatically reduce the ability to get debilitating chronic diseases. And that's where the big payoff is. I love that. I want to read that one sentence one more time. How long you live in life can have a lot to do with genetics and some luck, but how well you live with the life and the time you have left is dependent on what you put in your mouth and the diet and lifestyle you live. Amen, Dr. Goldhamer. And by the way, I just want to mention that he said that there's in LA now, there's a facility here that's run by one of the doctors that trained with him. His name's Nathan Gershfeld, and his facility is beautiful, and he said people should check it out. And since I lived here, he mentioned that I should check it out. He said they have an intern training program and graduates from naturopathic and chiropractic schools and medical graduates. So all of these kind of graduates are really interested in fasting now and learning more about it. And I think that's so cool. And it's really exciting to know that it's becoming mainstream because it's such an incredible healing modality. I think there's nothing faster than fasting. Well, you guys, I hope the information was at least exciting, but I thought it was so interesting. I learned so much myself, and I'm quite familiar with water fasting. I think it's really important to say again that he didn't feel that anybody should fast alone at home for 4 days or longer. And honestly, I've done that before, and I know how my body responds to fasting, and I do fine. But I know someone like Lloyd, and I know a couple other friends that tried it, and they got in trouble even after a couple days. So I totally understand that. But I love that he told us about the really important things for health and life is to fast 16 hours a day drinking water only, which is pretty easy because if you eat dinner and you're done, let's say by 5, you can eat breakfast at 9, and if you eat a little later, you just wait a little later. So 16 hours is not that hard when 8 hours should be sleep, right? So I thought that was really good, and I enjoyed learning that the cumulative effects of intermittent fasting are one of the best things that we could do. In addition, of course, to sleep and exercise. And I think everyone knows about exercise, and I think so many people don't put enough emphasis on sleep. Sleep is so important, and I see so many people today, that's the one area of their life that they don't do well. So I think when he said sleep, exercise, diet, lifestyle, that's really important, and I love his advice about the intermittent fasting because that's something we all can do every day. And if you guys have any symptoms or you're interested in going to the clinic, then check out his website or call them and make a 30-minute appointment with them to see if you're a candidate to go to their clinic and fast. but there's so many great things there. Even if you just go to learn cooking classes to eat healthier, you want to take a little getaway. A lot of people would say, that's not a getaway, eating a diet like that and fasting. But for me, that would be a dream getaway. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the information. I thought it was really educational and very important that you guys learn this stuff. I only wish you could have heard it from him because he's so passionate and he's so, intense. I remember hearing him once in an interview and he said, what? You think my diet is extreme? How about ripping open your chest and sawing through all your ribs for a heart surgery? That's extreme. So he's that kind of guy, and it was a great interview, and I'm so sad I lost it. It's the first ever, and I really apologize, but I hope you learned something today anyway. All right, you guys, you know what time it is, right? Yep, it's time to say goodbye, but only until the next one, and I hope that's not too long. And when it's the next one, I'll see you right back here around my table. Until then, drink water and only eat during your 8 hours. Ta-ta for now. Vidal has spoken. Remember, you heal with a plant-powered diet, homeopathy, and detoxing, of course. Peace. Be healthy. Be free. Live life.